Welcome to the Pinal County Crime Podcast, the trial of Terrance Santistevan, episode 6. My name's Jody Newell. I'm a reporter with the Casa Grande Dispatch, and joining me is Noah Cullen. How you going, Noah?
Hey, Jody. Good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Noah is our crime reporter, our justice and issues reporter at the Dispatch, and today we've been out at the Pinal County Superior Courtrooms. It was a big day today. It's kind of like the bookend of the trial, and it was regarding sentencing of a person by the name of Terrance Santistevan, who was found guilty of committing two murders, first-degree murders. And this is in relation to an incident that occurred at the Sonaran Apartments on April 24, 2022. And a couple of weeks ago, on April 24, 2025, exactly 3 years to the day, Mr. Santistevan was found guilty by the jury. It didn't take too long for them to come to that decision. And today it was all about the sentencing, Noah. And again, it was a pretty sort of tense kind of vibe in the courtrooms today out at Florence.
Yeah, no, you weren't there for the verdict, but yeah, it was similar. It felt similar, and after such a long trial, all of the sort of emotions are kind of coming to the forefront at these last sort of hearings, and yeah, it was no different today. Yeah, it was very crowded and felt heavy,
Full house.
and yeah, you could tell everybody's feeling that, and yeah, we heard from the families.
I think we all kept waiting for about 15 minutes, Noah, I think, because the judge took his time in coming out, and you could cut the air with a knife, couldn't you? It was that tense, that the sense of anticipation, and it was a real sort of pressure-packed room.
Yeah, yeah.
The judge was Judge Daniel Washburn, the Honourable Daniel Washburn, and he was standing in front of the defence counsel, who was Christopher Lynch and Anne Ellsbury. They're both from the Pinal County Public Defender's Office. And for the prosecution, it was Pinal County Prosecutor Sean Jensvold, and he was assisted by Lauren Deacon. And the judge began to ask family members if they'd like to make impact statements. And I think we had about 5 or 6 impact statements, Noah.
Yeah, it sounds right. Or I guess a couple. Well, there's like a couple different speakers speaking kind of on behalf of many other people. Like Brianna Garcia spoke kind of on behalf of Leslie Coda's side, and then a couple members of Danielle Marietta's family went up to speak on behalf of some other members of their family.
Yeah. And Danny's mother, Janie, spoke first. She went they had like a podium, and she was accompanied by, I think, victim support from Pinal County. And Janie was clutching a framed photo of young Danny with Jesus Christ. And she was holding that while she read out her impact statement. And we're going to play that in a minute. But it was just really good to hear from Janie and hear her voice and to hear her take on the situation, and it was quite a moving speech. No, a lot of people were crying. I was crying. It was a beautiful speech by Danny's mother, Janie.
Yeah, it was not. It was just nice hearing from all the families, and yeah, it's for all of their speeches and all their just hearing their words was profound and moving, and yeah, I mean I teared up a couple times. Just tough hearing that, yeah.
For those going to speak, go ahead and approach the podium. Be sure to speak into the microphone. And if you would, start us off by telling us your name and spelling it, please.
My name is Janie Murieta, Janie.
Thank you.
I'm Danielle's mother.
Go ahead.
I came here today to let you and the court know what a wonderful person that we lost on that ugly night. Our Danielle was a 17-year-old beautiful young lady that was about to start living her best life. She had gone to prom the night before on that Saturday, and she was super excited about all the fun that her and her friends had, and she was even more excited that she had exactly 1 month of school left till she graduated on May 24th. Then she was going on a trip for the summer to Texas to go see family and friends before she started college. But sadly enough, she never got to go finish high school. She never got to go on her summer trip. She never got to go to college because she was taken away from us for no reason. Danielle was one of the most loving, caring, sweetest, funniest souls around. She had the biggest heart, and she loved big. Danielle never met a stranger. She loved everybody. She loved life. She was always doing something, wanting to try and learn new things, anything that she could possibly do. In school, she was big in FFA. She loved showing her animals, helping her team with theirs. She played high school volleyball and league volleyball. She was pretty good. She played football, and she was the only girl on her team, and she ran with the best of them. She loved riding her quads all over Casa Grande and pretty much the tri-state area with all her friends, dirt bikes, and her horse. She was always active. But not only was she taken from these things, she was also taken from her family and friends that did these things with her. Her dad and I will never get to see her get married. Her dad will never get to walk her down the aisle and have their first daddy and daughter dance. We will never get to be grandparents. Her only sister will not get to be an aunt, or her kids get to be an aunt or have cousins. We don't get to see her on her 21st birthday this year. Her smile brought up the room. No more of her contagious laugh. No more silly texts. No more that I get to tell her I love her and her warm, tight hugs and her call me mommy and her funny little voice. She was ripped away from me, and I will never get that part back, and I will never be able to forgive you for this. You may be spending the rest of your life in prison for what you did to Danielle and Leslie, but you have sentenced me, her dad, her sister, friends, cousins, aunts, grandparents, uncles, and other people that loved her dearly to a lifetime of hell without her. With your actions committing this horrific crime that you took Danny and Leslie from us just proves that you have no compassion or regard for any human life, not even for your own or your own family, and this is really sad. I'm going to stop there because I'm going to stop there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We heard from Carla Estrada, who's Keno. That's Janie's husband's sister, Carla, and she was Danny's auntie. And Carla got up and spoke, and Carla's been a real stalwart for the whole group of those women. She's sort of been at the front and been a really strong, solid support to all the families that are there. And she got up and spoke, and then her son Leandro, she quoted some words from him, and I think you commented, Noah, that you were really impressed with what he had to say, because he took into account Santistevan and the mistake that he'd made, and he sort of made a few comments about that. They weren't derogatory; they were quite philosophical and quite profound. Noah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot. It wasn't just him, but I mean, he was a good example of it. But just kind of, just trying to kind of accept, I guess, and trying to kind of move on and not be hung up on hatred or which you might despise this person. But no, it was very moving what he and what everyone had to say, especially just focus on just the love that they have in their family and just how they're collectively trying to move on and not sort of being up on hatred.
My name is Carla Estrada, Karla. ESTR88.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I am Danny's paternal aunt. I'm going to be reading for my mom, Danny's grandmother, Jerry. Good morning, Your Honor. I want to address this to you, Mr. Santistevan. First of all, I want you to know my heart truly pains for you. Instead of telling you how much I despise you, I am sincerely sorry for the terrible mistake you committed. You deprived a beautiful, loving soul of a successful future and dreams of helping others in the medical field. Perhaps you didn't have the love, guidance, or nurturing you deserved. I pray the time you are confined, you take the opportunity to reflect the wrong you committed so you may come to terms and ask for sincere forgiveness so that you may have peace the day you meet our Creator and the door to God's kingdom will open to you. An important scripture is in Matthew 7, verses 13 through 14. Wide is the road, the gate, and broad is the path that leads to destruction. Many enter through it, but small is the gate and narrow the path that leads to life, and few are who find it. As we would sometimes joke about winning the lottery, Danny would quickly respond, quote, "Yes, money is good when used properly, but remember, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after have erred from faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. The pain I feel is indescribable, not to mention the pain my beloved son, daughter-in-law, and her sister feel as her cousins, aunts, uncles, as well as her great aunts, great uncles, and many who loved her." Your Honor, this one's from my son. I am an older cousin to Danielle, someone who saw her as his little sister. I'm not going to say anything negative, but instead, I hope for some positive for you. It's clear through your actions that you do not care nearly as much as you should. Your own actions proved a lack of respect for human life and its fragility. In fact, it shows selfish behavior. So I hope that through your time on earth, with what you've been assigned, you come to peace with it and find some positive for yourself. Through your actions, I'll never get to share life with my loved one again. I've made peace with that. I hope you can learn to be better from where you are now, as your behavior is only saddening and disappointing to see potential go to waste. Please, if nothing else, live your life to make a better difference in the world, not to prove us wrong, but for yourself. Thank you.
The dignity and grace that the families have shown has been quite remarkable to see and observe. And I don't know if I, lost someone very dear and near to me. I don't know if I could be that cool and calm and philosophical. I mean, it was something to behold. And I can't speak highly enough of the Sanchez and Murrieta families. They've just been so quite remarkable during this whole trial. It's through a very, very difficult time. Just in terms of the composition of the room, Noah, who did you notice that you hadn't sort of seen? I mean, we did see a number of Casa Grande Police Department officers in the gallery.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple different members of the police department kind of came to hear the families had to say. I think that's kind of it that I noticed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we think of anybody else?
I was sitting next to Brian Ramirez, who's the deputy chief of the Casa Grande Police Department. There was Brian Martinez, who gave evidence, and he was put under a pretty thorough cross-examination from Christopher Lynch. And I've called him cool as a cucumber, and he was that day. And he was there today to sit in on the sentencing. Tisa Ellsworth was there today as well, and it was great to see her. And her husband Chad was there as well. So it was just really good to see, the police department supporting the families. And again, there's been a lot of conjecture about the police and how they handled this matter, but I think the swiftness of the verdict, Noah, really did. I think that erased any doubts or anything about the way they conducted the case. It was, you know, it was great to see them in the audience, and it was good to see that they were there to hear the sentencing as well, because they're the ones that got this fellow and got all the evidence, and it was good to see them, represented in the gallery today.
Yeah, it was especially Ellsworth. It was nice to see that she was there. I mean, when she was on the stand, I mean, she took the brunt of that thread from the defense about the malpractices within the police department. She sort of took the brunt of that when she was on the stand, and so it was nice to see that she came. But yeah, that seems to be sort of the conclusion. I feel like is that the police department had made some mistakes throughout their investigation and the process. Yes, but it doesn't. At least what was revealed through the testimony, it didn't come close to what Lynch was sort of suggesting, especially when you get to what Lynch was suggesting in his closing statements and alleging of this conspiracy. I mean, we haven't got to Jensvold yet, but I mean, Jensvold sort of, he said it was preposterous. That was the word he used. So I feel like that's kind of the middle ground there. Is that yes, mistakes were made, but the conspiracy is just too far.
I'm not going to name names, but I spoke to one police officer, and they said, there's never a perfect case. And I think you can apply that to a whole raft of endeavours in life, and like in sport or in our field, in journalism, in a lot of fields, Noah, in military fields, things could have been done better or whatever. It's never perfect. You've got egos and you've got office politics, and you've got a whole raft of things to deal with, and it's applicable to a whole raft of things. And I've said that throughout this podcast, that I believe that the police department adjusted well and responded well, and I think it was really overblown by the defence, and again, the swiftness of the verdict just, to me, rubber stamped their efforts.
Yeah, definitely. I think Jensvold said that everybody learn you learn everything from every case.
Yes.
So yeah, that goes along with what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll learn from it. I think they'll learn from it, and So, do you want to talk about Sean Jensvold? Because I mean, he was pretty sort of laid back today, and not his usual, poker face, sort of holding the cards close to his chest. We sort of got to see the human side of Sean a little bit. No, and he spoke about, he spoke about how he's been to several of these trials, and he spoke about money and greed and all that, and the motivators of murder. And so it was a pretty interesting glimpse or observation from Mr. Jensvold today.
Yeah, it's interesting I'd been interested to sort of hear from him throughout the whole process of this, and it was nice to finally sort of get a more inside look as to how he views the case. But not only this case, I mean, he's been a prosecutor for years, and he has done, as he said, he's done many murder cases, and so it must be sort of odd for him to sort of be sitting in this scene and kind of replaying similar cases over and over again. I mean, he prosecutes just witnesses just horrible stories and of victims, and so it's nice to hear from him, and he sort of pondered about why and how things like this happen and that they recur, and he sort of pondered about different places where people might find solace, like places of worship or philosophy classes, to sort of try and answer for themselves why things like this might happen. So it was interesting hearing him kind of ponder about that.
Well, you wrote today in your article, Noel, that's on pinalcentral.com. He said, I've done too many of these. And he was thinking about, the cases that he's prosecuted. And he goes, whether it be jealousy or greed or a $14,000 debt, it's always the same. Someone decides to put their petty interest over the lives of someone else. And, I think in this instance, that was quite clear. And so he's obviously, he's a veteran of these style of cases, and he's, like he said, he's done too many of them, and obviously he'd love to not do them, but unfortunately people do commit homicides, and he was quite philosophical about the whole process.
Yeah, no, it's nice to hear his yeah, given his experience with these cases, and it's nice to hear him talk about how he
Yeah.
views, there's his job and his role in these recurring murder cases that he prosecutes.
And he said the conspiracy claims were, the idea of a conspiracy is preposterous. So that was
Yeah.
interesting to hear him say that as well too.
I've done too many of these. The sense of justice that the prosecutor's supposed to have on a case like this, it's there, but it's always overwhelmed by the feeling of sadness for everyone involved, including the defendant and his family. I just want to thank the victims' families for their patience and just getting to know them just a little bit over these past few years, especially during the trial. But I know that they wish that they would have never met any of us, because that would have meant that Danielle and Leslie would still be here. When I think about all these murder cases that I've done, sitting here in the same position, it's selfishness impact statements that always come to mind. Whether it be jealousy or greed or a $14,000 debt, it's always the same. Someone decides to put their petty interest over the lives of someone else. And that's what we have here. And circumstances are different, but that feeling is always the same. I told the jurors during my closing that they're not supposed to consider all those big questions of why, the questions that are designed to be dealt with in other places like houses of worship and philosophy classes, that kind of thing. But now that we're here, those are all the questions that everyone in this room, I'm sure, is asking themselves in one way or another. There's no good answer. A person of faith will have a sense of peace as to the fact that you're not going to get a good answer to those questions while we're here. But the sense of justice that we get today is just, like I said, overwhelmed by the sense of loss for everyone involved. I just want to thank Detective Miller, all the Casa Grande Police Department, some of whom are here today. They did a great job on this case. There are lessons to be learned from every case, from everyone involved, but the idea of a conspiracy is preposterous, and it was proven out by the jurors' verdict, I believe. And there's everybody else involved. Our staff, our investigators who helped get many uncooperative witnesses here, including the two Arkansas prosecutors, David and Ben, who helped get Kelsey Tebow here over her objections. All of them played a role in this and getting us to this point and being able to put on this case that we did. The state's asking for consecutive life terms in the practical matters, it doesn't make a difference, but Leslie and Danielle's lives deserve to be honored individually. Thank you.
Just on Lauren Deacon, Lauren actually read a victim impact statement on behalf of young Macy Murrieta. That's Danny's sister. It was great to see Macy there today, and Macy's been a regular attendee at the case, and it hasn't been easy for her. And I just hope that that she, that life can be a lot happier for her as things move on. And but it was nice of Lauren to speak on behalf of Macy, because it would have been a very challenging thing to do, to speak in front of all those people, and obviously, when you're quite upset about the matter as well too. So it was good to hear Lauren speak on behalf of Macy. Noah.
Yeah, it was nice to hear Lauren speak. It was nice to hear from Danny's sister. I don't know what I can add to her words. I'll let her words speak for itself.
So first, Your Honor, I've been asked to read a statement on behalf of Macy, M-A-C-I, Murrieta, who's Danny's sister.
Go ahead.
And she's here. She just asked that I read it. My name is Macy Murrieta. I am Danny's sister. On April 24th, 2022, I woke up that morning feeling uneasy from a dream I had had the night before. I looked up the meaning of it, and it mentioned someone close was going to pass away. I didn't try to think about it and continued my morning. I had spent the morning cuddling and hanging out with my sister. We then decided to go get lunch at Buffalo and then came home to watch movies. The evening then came around, and she had left with a friend. That was the last time I was with her. Around 8:40 p.m., I heard the devastating news and rushed to the hospital. I saw her in a bed, barely alive, being put into the helicopter. I screamed for her name, hoping she would just wake up. The officers stopped me from going up to her. That was officially the last time I saw my sister. My parents and I get into our truck leaving to Banner Desert Medical Center, since that's where they were going to transport her in the helicopter. The ride with my parents was silent, not knowing if my sister was going to make it. I look up in the sky while we're on the freeway and see the helicopter that my sister was in, praying she was and would be okay. We then arrive at the hospital, all of us stressed and worried. Hours go by after just sitting in silence and disbelief when they finally call us back. They place us in this small room with a couch and a table. The doctors came in to tell us that Danny had many injuries and the bullet hit a main artery, causing her to bleed internally. She did not make it, they said. After hearing those words, my mind shut down. I screamed, punched, cried, and ran out of the room toward the exit doors and went outside. Everything was a blur after that. I was so devastated and so lost. I lost my best friend, my sister, my everything. Losing her affected my mental health so bad I couldn't work, sleep, think, barely eat for months. Losing her hurt me emotionally and physically. I could feel my body hurting from all the emotional pain. I really wish she were here with me. I feel so lost without her. My sister and I weren't really like other siblings. We were always so close in age, and she honestly was my other half. She completed me as an individual, and we always looked up to each other. Losing her just feels like we've been torn from each other, and I've always had a void in my life and in my heart since. No one will ever replace my sister, since she was one of a kind and my only sibling. I'll always feel alone without having her presence around and with me. It impairs my daily life, knowing I will never live to see my sister grow up with me and travel the world and live together forever as we had planned.
The other thing I'd like to say too about today was there was a number of family members that came up to us. Now, I don't know if it happened to you, but a couple of them came up to us and said they really appreciated the podcast, and that I just felt really quite humble when they told us that, but I was pleased as well too, because they said, we were giving them things like extra information on the case, and they really appreciated that. So I'm sort of glad that's what they got out of it, was that they were able to sort of get extra information, and it was very kind of them to say thank you. And yeah, it was just really cool.
Yeah, no, I remember we were talking about this earlier, and Danny's grandmother, she came up to me and she said thank you. It was just nice to know that that what we're doing is providing value to someone, and so it makes me feel like we're doing a good job, and we're doing something that's worthwhile. And so we're actually providing value to people, and yeah, it's nice to see.
And I think it's important that the story got out. I think from day one, I think it was important that we did this to get the story out, because, these two girls meant a lot to the community here in Casa Grande and Eloy as well too, Pinal County. And I thought it was really important to get the story out. And, I remember Daniel Washburn a couple of weeks ago saying, to the jury, oh, nobody will know, and no one will only you'll know what you went through. And I sort of thought, well, no, I think this podcast, we've tried to let people know what went on, and it'll be there for as long as YouTube's there. So, and it's a record, it's a document of what we witnessed and what we saw. And people can come back and check it out or whatever. But I think it's really, really important that, that we did something like this to leave a legacy and sort of give people an idea of how the trial did go on. And it's there as a resource for people to check out. So I'm very proud of what we did and what we created, and it's there for people to check out, for better or worse,
Yeah, yeah, and as the years pass, anybody can sort of revisit this and sort of think back as to how we were feeling and what we were talking about, throughout the trial as it was happening, and then it's interesting to go back.
One of the interesting things today that was discussed at the case was Christopher Lynch, the defence counsel for Terrance Santistevan, made a point of mentioning Santistevan's previous conviction history, which there's none. So What's your take on that, Noah?
Yeah, I guess what I could add on that is I think this is the first thing that Lynch said when he spoke on behalf of Santistevan and the family. He made a point to say that Santistevan didn't have any criminal history, no criminal record, and then he made a point to say that that is a distinction between others, he's referring to Dominic Leos and Jose Nunez and others, but definitely them two who walk in and out of the courtroom with criminal records. I mean, both of them have been incarcerated in federal prisons for human smuggling, and so Lynch is again making a distinction between Santistevan and them by saying that Santistevan has no criminal record. They do, but it really makes no difference. And I imagine maybe Lynch is saying this to try and push Washburn toward some sort of parole or some possibility that could help Santistevan in the future. I imagine is the reason.
Yeah, it was just an interesting maneuver or a piece of strategy from Lynch, and obviously that'll move forward to next Wednesday, Noah, when they have the oral arguments, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, that was an interesting. I thought it was a sort of an interesting move by Lynch to sort of roll that out, talking about people's conviction history and how his client didn't have that apart from the double murder charge. So yeah,
it makes no difference. I mean, it's kind of goes back to, it has no effect on this case and on this sentencing. But yeah, it makes no difference. But I guess he's saying it to try and push the judge to help out in the future, to give Santistevan some chance in the future.
All right, Mr. Lynch.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of very, very brief statements. First, as confirmed on the adult probation criminal history report, Terrance Santistevan has no adult criminal history, none, other than these convictions. Unlike other witnesses who were called to testify during trial, you remember them all. Everyone who sits in this courtroom remembers them all. I'm not going to dignify their names by stating them here today, but they all came in with a criminal past and with criminal convictions, not Terrance Santistevan. It'd be dishonest for me to stand forward and say he's so sorry about what happened, and he's so sorry for his involvement of what happened. It would be dishonest because he had no involvement in what happened, and he has no remorse for actions that he was not involved in. Since the time of his arrest, Terrance Santistevan has denied any involvement in the murders of Leslie Cota and Danielle Murrieta. There was no evidence at trial that he knew or was in any way acquainted with Leslie Cota or Danielle Murrieta. Although he has genuine empathy for the loss of the families of Leslie Cota and Danielle Murrieta, he's accepted no responsibility for their murders. He has no remorse for their murders, since he played no part in their murders. Thank you.
One thing I forgot to mention too before, Noah, was it was great to see Claudia Sanchez, the mother of Leslie, and they played this beautiful video today in memory of Leslie, and that was lovely to see today, Noah. That video with the music.
Yeah, it was really nice to see. It was just a slide. It was a video of a slideshow of photos of starting childhood all the way up through school and all the way up to senior photos, and so yeah, it was an emotional video. It was nice to see.
Yeah, and it was nice to see Leslie in the video, and just you sort of got a sense of what she was like. She was sort of messing around with her friend or something, and it was just nice to see. That was a nice touch by the Sanchez family to sort of have folks sort of see that. Yeah,
emphasis on just their memories, and photos are a great way to sort of retain and keep memories, and so just everybody sort of emphasized their memories of the two girls, and so yeah, this is just one of that, a good example of that.
Good morning. My name is Brianna Garcia. Leslie was my sister-in-law, and I will be reading a victim impact statement on behalf of her family. One might say guilty, a guilty conviction, but no, there is no victory in the loss of two innocent lives. Nothing about this moment is victorious when two beautiful girls were taken from this world in the most horrific way. This isn't victory, this is merely the bare minimum one should expect for a remorseless individual that has shattered families and left us with nothing but memories to replay and a heartache of a lifetime. It's ironic, isn't it, how no one could seem to remember the timeline of the day their lives supposedly changed forever. Yet we replay this day over and over in our head, remembering every detail. The emotions that filled our bodies the moment we found out, in disbelief, wondering where we went wrong or what we could have done differently. How is one supposed to mentally process and accept the fact that their daughter has been murdered after just speaking to her over the phone 3 minutes prior? How do you explain to her little sister that those would have been the last words she'd hear from her older sister? Maybe, just maybe, if the phone call had lasted even just a few minutes longer, she'd still be with us today. As evidence unfolded, the defendant sat there as if this were a story that didn't belong to him, acting as if this was all new to him, as if he wasn't the one who had caused this devastation. He sat there without a shred of guilt, without an ounce of humanity. The lives he destroyed meant nothing to him. It is insulting enough having to sit in the same courtroom with the mother of this remorseless individual who, instead of redirecting him to do what was right, chose to help him hide the truth. While we were desperately searching for answers, grieving, crying in pain, she chose to protect his lies. That is not love, that is evil, and in our eyes, she's just as guilty. The defense has tried to create this inaccurate illusion of Leslie. Those who had the pleasure to meet Leslie knew she was what one would call a girl's girl. She was the type of friend you'd be lucky to have by your side. If you ever needed anything, Leslie would be sure to give you that much and more. She was a lighthearted and selfless individual. Leslie filled the room with laughter with her goofiness. She had the ability to light up any room she walked into. But now, there is no laughter filling the rooms where she once walked. You no longer hear her music blasting through the hallways you once heard her sandals flip-flop through. There is no more fighting as to who gets to use the restroom first, or the sound of her nails clicking together at the dinner table. We no longer sit at the dinner table as a family, as there's now an empty seat. There are no more happy birthdays or happy holidays each year, just a reminder of that extra gift that was meant to be there and passed to Leslie. No words will ever be enough to describe the loss, the pain, and the void that we have been left with. These girls deserve to grow up to live full lives, surrounded by love and happiness. Instead, their last moments were filled with horror, inflicted by the person sitting in front of us today. So no, there is no victory today nor celebration, only the demand that he spends every single second of the rest of his life miserable in the same pain and helplessness these girls felt in their final moments. He took everything from these girls, and now he should be reminded of the lives he stole and the pain he caused, because that's the only form of real justice we will be able to receive. Let today be a reminder to you to never take a moment for granted. As I'd like to say, take things with a grain of salt. Hug a little longer, love a little stronger, forgive a little sooner, smile a little sweeter, laugh a little harder, have a little more patience. Life can change in an instant, and if these beautiful girls taught us anything, it is to live life to the fullest. On behalf of Leslie's family, I'd like to thank the state, Detective Miller and Lauren Deacon for their time. They go on to prove that not all heroes wear capes. Thank you.
Just in terms of the way that the sort of the proceedings closed, first off, the family of Terrance Santistevan, his mother Julie was there. I think I saw Burgundy, that's Terrance's girlfriend. She was in attendance, and Terrance's grandparents were there as well too. They'd been through the trial throughout the weeks that had been held, and they filed out first, and then there was a bit of a pause, and then all the families and the prosecution came out, and everyone sort of stood outside the court, and basically it was a chance for people to have a chat and have a talk, and maybe talk. I mean, I had a chat to Sean Jensvold, and it was just nice to have have a word to him about it and stuff. I don't know. What did you do, Noah, when you got outside?
Like I didn't linger. I left and was actually able to talk to a member of the jury, and so I actually left to go speak with the jury member. So that was about it. I didn't get to linger, but it was interesting. Well, this will be a future story, but it was interesting to speak to a member of the jury, would get the sort of what it was interesting to sort of hear about how the jury was sort of thinking about the trial as it was happening, but also in the deliberation room after they had gotten all the evidence and their process and how seriously they took it and the responsibility they felt and the emotions that they felt trying to make this decision. And so just hearing that from that perspective, it was interesting. But so I didn't get to like.
Yeah, and this will be for a later story, Noah. You're going to write about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
fantastic.
Should be next week sometime.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to actually discuss a few things with that juror today as well too, Noah, and I asked them if they were mindful of the anniversary. It didn't. They said that it didn't influence their decision, but they were mindful of that 3-year anniversary. I found that an interesting disclosure, Noah.
Yeah, I mean, they said that it didn't influence, it didn't make them rush their decision, or it didn't influence, that they didn't have to feel that they had to make the decision for the anniversary. But yeah, they were interesting to know that they were definitely mindful of that exact anniversary date.
And I'll touch on one more thing, Noah, because I don't want to steal your thunder with your story and that, but I want to touch on one thing.
No.
I think the juror said something along the lines of there was 7 pieces of evidence that they ticked off on, but the one thing they found that they couldn't really rely on was the gun. They really couldn't tie that to Santistevan, even though the shell casings matched, the gun, the casings taken from the scene matched that, but they couldn't really tie the actual gun to Santistevan. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think some of that, I think that makes sense. I mean, because they were really trying to be meticulous in not only tying the evidence to the scene or to the case generally, tying it to Santistevan directly. And so that's a different question. And so I think when it came to, at least in this example, the one thing they weren't able to tie to Santistevan was the gun itself. And so, I mean, throughout the gun was tied to the scene, that is for sure. But tying it to Santistevan's hands is still a different question. And so, so I think earlier we were talking about it. I mean, I think I said, to be 100% sure about that, probably can't. And so it probably comes down to, maybe you can be very sure, or I don't know how the jury would have put it, but so yeah, I think just being 100% sure about that, I think it's kind of hard.
Yeah. But I'm really looking forward to reading your article about that, Noah, because we often, you often wonder what were they thinking, and how did they view the prosecution and the defence, and so it'll be interesting to sort of see your article, and people can check that out on pinalcentral.com, and so I'm really looking forward to that, Noah, and it should be a great read. So yeah, really good and a great. I understand they reached out to you. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. They're just in the interest of them wanting to sort of, I mean, it's a good story, but I mean, they just wanted the public to know how much responsibility they felt and how seriously they took their job. And so I think that was their reasoning behind reaching out to me. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting for people to see that insight And so,
And the other interesting thing that I was able to find out too, Noah, was that they had been listening to the podcast after the trial. So that was interesting to hear as well too. So
yeah,
they've listened to the whole lot. So that was good that they took the time after trial to check it out. So
yeah. And
yeah, it was just, yeah,
it's almost like a media binge or something. 'Cause you can't, you couldn't read or watch anything during the trial. It spoke a lot about how hard it was for them to go home every day and not be able to talk to their family or even the other jurors. And couldn't, you had just witnessed an intense day of testimony. You can't say anything about it. And so it's kind of tough for 6 weeks to do that. And so then I imagine when it's over, you'll kind of delve into everything that had been talked about. When you weren't able to sort of engage in that.
That's right. And I mean, I had a bit of a chat with Tyler Miller, about things, and we were able to talk freely, like we weren't able to do that weeks ago. I mean, we weren't allowed to discuss the case with anybody, so it was just good to be able to have a chat about the nuts and bolts of the case, and it's a couple of questions that I would have loved to have. You can't, but there were some things that I was saying, geez, I would have loved to have asked that question or whatever, and today was sort of kind of like an opportunity to do that, and no, it was really just I found that to be a really helpful process as well too, Noah.
Yeah.
Daniel Washburn today sort of not took a back seat, but he didn't really sort of talk too much today, did he? He was more focused on the procedural side of things, and like he said in his closing remarks, he didn't really have much to say, did he? Really?
Yeah, he said more on the verdict day, but yeah, today he sort of just said that didn't really think that he could say much to really ease any pain on both sides, and so he kind of just stuck to the procedural things and delivering the sentence. That was really what he said.
Beyond the usual words that I must say at a sentencing, I do not plan to say much else because I don't believe there's anything I can say that's going to benefit the defendant or lessen the pain to the victims' families, except that I extend my sincere sorrow to the families of these two young women. Based on what I've heard here today and what was set forth in the documents I mentioned that I reviewed, it is the judgment of the court that the defendant be sentenced to prison for his natural life as to count 1 and count 2. Count 2 shall be consecutive to count 1. The court finds that reasonable grounds exist to order a consecutive sentence because the defendant murdered 2 individuals. Each victim is a unique individual, and justice demands that the defendant serve separate sentences for each victim. As a result of the sentences, the defendant is not eligible for any commutation, parole, work furlough, work release, or release from confinement on any basis. The defendant is entitled to 1,114 days of pre-sentence incarceration credit as to count 1 and 0 days as to count 2. There are no fines to be issued in this matter. As to restitution, that has not been determined yet. I can retain jurisdiction on the issue of restitution for a period of 180 days if that is what the state is asking.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Judge, the defense asks that if there is a restitution hearing, that Mr. Santistevan be transported back to the courthouse for that hearing.
All right, we'll make sure the minute entry reflects the same and that it is the request that the defendant be transferred for all future hearings as it pertains to restitution.
That's great. Thanks, Judge.
Now, Mr. Santistevan, you have the right to file an appeal within 20 days of today. If you cannot afford a lawyer to represent you on appeal, one can be appointed for you at no cost. If you cannot afford a copy of the transcript from today's proceeding, that can be provided to you at no cost. Due to the nature of the offense, the defendant is not eligible to apply to have the judgment set aside. In addition, even though he has no prior felonies because of the nature of the offense or the fact that it is a dangerous offense, the defendant is not eligible to have his rights automatically restored. In addition, he's not eligible to even apply to have his rights restored. In addition, in regard to sealing all criminal records because of the nature of the offense, or given that it is a dangerous offense, the defendant is not eligible to petition the court to seal all criminal records related to this offense. It's ordered quashing any outstanding warrants, vacating any future hearings, and remanding the defendant over to the Department of Corrections. I will sign a release order here to hold him non-bondable till he is picked up. Is there anything more from defense?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
From the state?
No, Judge, thank you.
All right, so that will conclude. We'll take a recess and we'll come back when we're ready to discuss that motion for new trial.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Just on a technical thing, Noah. I understand I understand that Christopher Lynch will be asking for a new trial. Is that my understanding, that he's going to be having an oral argument suggesting a new trial proposed by the defence, and that'll be held on this Wednesday at 10 a.m. What are your thoughts on that, and what does that entail?
Yeah,
go on.
yeah, that's right. So it's just an oral argument hearing, and so I'm not familiar on the what he's exactly going to bring up, and see if there is any as to why he wants to bring a new trial. I don't know what he's going to argue, but it's just a hearing, and I guess this sort of will fall in from today, from 20 days on from today. The defense can appeal, and so I imagine that this hearing will take place, and some sort of appeal will take place after that hearing. But yeah, I don't know what Lynch will argue on the 21st, but that is what the hearing is about. It's you can argue for a new trial.
Yeah, and I know that Lauren Deacon and Sean Jensvold won't actually be there. I think they're going to a conference or something. They said that during the proceedings today. So they'll be doing that virtually, and I'll be keeping an eye on that from a distance as well. I'll be listening to it if need be, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And like you said, Noah, Mr. Santistevan, I think, has 20 days. I think the judge, Daniel Washburn, said that he's got 20 days to appeal the trial. So I don't know. It's going to be a bit of a tough ask, I think. I say that purely on the grounds of the jury reached a decision very, very quickly, and that's a pretty heavy sort of statement. They're the judge, aren't they, really? And they looked at all the evidence and everything and came to the conclusion that he was guilty. So it'll be an interesting sort of phase, this appeal process, and how it goes, how it runs out.
Yeah, I imagine we'll have more of an idea on what the grounds of the appeal will be after this 21st hearing. So it's hard to say now, but yeah, maybe after that 21st hearing, given what the defense, what they argue, what they say, and what their reasoning is for why there should be a new trial, I imagine that will lead us to get closer to what they might appeal for.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to talk about Santistevan's side of things today. Christopher Lynch spoke on his behalf, and but he said something along the lines of it would be dishonest for me to stand forward and say he's sorry about what happened, and so he's sorry for his and he's sorry for his involvement. It would be dishonest because he had no involvement in what happened and has no remorse for actions that he was not involved in. So he's still defiant to the end, isn't he? Both Terrance and Lynch. He still has the view that he didn't do it.
Yep. Lynch and Santistevan, they're maintaining Santistevan's innocence even now. And so Lynch spoke on behalf of Santistevan and Santistevan's family. Lynch is the only one to sort of speak on their side, and he maintained Santistevan's innocence. That was the main thrust.
And I think the only thing we heard from Terrance today was he gave his date of birth when the judge asked him to do that. And the other observation I'd like to tell our viewers and our listeners is that Mr. Santistevan was dressed in PCSO prison gear. He was in a blue uniform, and it had PCSO inmate on what he was wearing. He was heavily handcuffed, as well as there were leg chains as well too, Noah. So he was in full prisoner mode today. There was no suit and tie. It was the serious business of being an inmate, and that's how was presented today to the public.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, it's just the big difference in terms of, throughout the trial, he's showing up and he's wearing a suit every day. But now this hearing, he was dressed in the inmate attire, and he had chains, and yeah, just a difference.
And I've got to say this, I couldn't understand what he said, but he did make some comments as he walked out. He faced his family, and he sort of appeared to be a little bit animated, and I couldn't make out what he said, but he did say something as he was, as he walked out. It wasn't a shouting or anything, but just there was a little bit of pepper in what he was saying, and I don't know, I just couldn't make out what he said, but there was a little bit of animation there. Now, did you notice that?
I did notice that, but yeah, like you, I couldn't make out what he was saying exactly.
Yeah, it
But
was
yeah,
hard because
he
a lot
did
of
turn around to
people
his
in the room.
family. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hadn't seen him sort of behave that way. Normally, it's just been a bit of a grin and a thumbs up, and walks out with the prison officers. But today there was a little bit of animation there, so maybe the reality's starting to kick in. This isn't this is for real. I mean, he's going to be locked up for the rest of his life, and maybe that was a indication of it starting to sort of sink in about what's actually going to be his future. So
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, just getting to the end. Still has an appeal, still has that 21st hearing, but yeah, the opportunities to reverse any of this are coming to an end.
yeah, just from our point of view in terms of reporting today, we weren't allowed to take photos now, which I found a little bit disappointing. I would have liked to have had a photo of Mr. Santistevan in his prison outfit to sort of show the world that that's where he's at these days. But we were told we weren't able to take photos, which was a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, that would have been the photo. I worked there with my camera today to get that photo, and I didn't expect that I wouldn't have been allowed, but yeah,
Mm.
if we got to roll with
I mean,
it.
but yeah, I mean, we did ask. We said we've been covering the trial. They did know who we were. We'd been there for several weeks, and they knew that we were reporters and that. But unfortunately, we weren't allowed, and we obviously complied. We didn't, make too much fuss about it. I did try and speak to the court official, but they, to their credit, they went downstairs and asked, and but we couldn't get permission. So that's just the way things go. So unfortunately, we didn't get a photo. But at least with the podcast, we can describe actually what we witnessed, and particularly with how Mr. Santistevan was dressed today. It would have been good to get a photo out just to show the community that that's where he's at now. And but unfortunately, we weren't able to have that option.
No, wanted the opportunity for that photo, but wasn't able to.
Yeah, yeah. So Noah, we said our sort of goodbyes and all that last time, but I gather this will be the last sort of time that we do cover this case, unless something extraordinary happens and we have an appeal and we got to go through the whole thing again. But
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this is done and dusted, and
yeah,
yeah, I mean, due process obviously has to have its it has to go through that process. But I think this will be the last episode that we do, and again, I just want to reiterate our thanks to all our listeners and folks that watched us, and I'd like to thank you too, Noah, for participating and giving up your time on a Friday night when you could be doing something better than talking about work and stuff. But I really do appreciate your input as well too, mate. So thank you for that.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, our staff in Joey Chenoweth and Rafita Corella, and also Donovan Kramer, we really do appreciate their support. And again, like I said, we really do appreciate the support from our listeners and viewers. And again, we do appreciate the feedback that you gave us, particularly today. It was really, really nice of you to say that to us, and it makes us feel, it was really, really, really kind of you to say that. And we've tried very hard to, get across, what was going on. And like I said before, it deserves to be heard. And again, we wish the families all the best as the future unfolds. And we hope all the very best for those folks. And it's been a great experience to cover it. And I don't know about you, I know you've just sort of started your career, but for me, I found this to be probably one of the most challenging things I've ever had to work on, and I'll never forget it. And there'll be moments of the case that I will never forget. And I'll always be thinking of the family. It's something that, like Daniel Washburn said to the jurors, you'll never forget these moments.
Yeah, I hope I have a long, long career in journalism, but I think that I also will forget this. I won't think I'll remember this forever.
Yeah, yeah. And I just, the thing like Jensfold said, just, instead of, stop being people for being selfish and that, and, putting themselves first over petty matters, I mean, money was the one of the main motivators behind this thing. And, it's not worth it, it's not worth it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But just before we go, Noah, where can people find your articles, and where can they view your content on?
So website is Pinal Central. This is our last podcast. My story on the sentencing hearing is up. It'll print tomorrow. It was up tonight. And then the next story on this will be on the juror. So it'll be next week.
I'm really looking forward to that, Noah. That should be a really interesting read, and just sort of another insight into, another layer of this case, because there's so many layers, wasn't there? There was just so many layers to
Yeah.
this story, and I'm really intrigued to hear what the jury and what was going through their minds. So I'm really looking forward to that story as well too. Yeah. And if you want to catch my content, it's on pinalcentral.com, or you can buy the hard copy of the Casa Grande Dispatch. Some people love the hard copy, Noah. They like a cup of coffee and turning the pages in the morning when they're eating their toast with a bit of Vegemite or whatever. So better throw
Biased.
that in. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Yeah. Yeah. But again, I'd like to thank our listeners and viewers for tuning in. It's been a great experience. And again, our prayers and love, much love, go to the families. And we just hope that the coming days are a lot kinder. And again, thank you so much for watching and listening. So my name's Jody Newell, and he's Noah Cullen. And thank you so much for watching and listening.